Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Football Discussions. Today, what I wanted to do is go over my top 10 college football players for the 2019 season. So, before we start, I wanted to just quick debrief a few players that were on the cusp, but just didn't make it into the top 10 that I'm sure some people wanted to see. So guys like Jake Fromm won't be on here. I'm a big fan of Fromm's. I think he's going to go first round of the 2020 NFL draft. Don't get me wrong, but he threw for 2,749 yards last year, which was 51st in all of college football, which is a little lower than you want it to be. So just reasons like that are why guys like Fromm just won't be on this list. That all being said, let's just get right into my top 10 players for the college football 2019 to 2020 season. Number 10, I went with Justin Herbert, the quarterback from Oregon. Herbert's a phenomenal player. He was draft eligible last year, bypassing the draft to stay one more year at Oregon, and he has all this. He has the complete skill set that you want in a quarterback. I think Oregon will win the Pac-12 this year. But let's just take a look into Herbert's stats a little more. He was 29. He had 29 touchdowns, which is 10th in college football. And when I'm saying 10th, you have to remember that a lot of the guys that were 1 through 10 actually went on to graduate this year or use their draft eligibility to skip their senior year. So a lot of the guys that were ahead of him are gone from college football. So that puts him around in like the top 5, top 4 for passing yards for quarterbacks that are still in college football this year, if that makes sense. So Justin Herbert was 10th in touchdowns. He had 3,151 yards, which is 24th, which definitely will go up in 2019, I believe. And also he only had 8 interceptions, which was 62nd in college football. So that shows his decision making. I mean, 29 to 8 is a great ratio, especially in college football. I think he's a fantastic quarterback, and I think he has a bright future ahead of him. Number 9, I went with the defensive end from Ohio State, Chase Young. Young's a really good player. We saw a lot from him in 2018. He put up 9.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss. And now that all the Nick Bosa nonsense is over at Ohio State, I think he'll just succeed even more, kind of make a name for himself, and I think he'll be a fantastic edge rusher for Ohio State this year and a fantastic edge rusher for whoever drafts him in 2020. For number 8, I went with the wide receiver from Alabama, Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy has a complete skill set that you want in a wide receiver. He won the best wide receiver in college football last year. He's just fantastic. He put up 1,315 yards on only 68 catches, which is insane. He also had the third most touchdowns in college football at 14 from the receiver position. So just all those stats compiled is why I made him 8. He's just so explosive off the line. He has one of the best releases in college football, and not to mention he has Tua throwing him the ball, so that just gives him so many more opportunities for big plays. And I think that he fits perfectly at number 8 in college football. For number 7, I went with the running back from Clemson, Travis Etienne. Etienne is actually a phenomenal player that kind of flew under the radar last year. I wouldn't be surprised if we heard his name a lot in Heisman contention in 2019. He's really just such a great athlete. Uh, he only had 204 rushing attempts in 2019, which was 49th in college football. And on those 204 rushing attempts, he put up the fourth most yards at 1,658 yards, and had the first or was first in touchdowns with 24. And that, again, that's only on 204 attempts, which is insane. And he also had 8.1 yards per carry, which is also absurd. And I think that this year Dabo Swinney, the head coach at Clemson, is going to do a great job at creating a new fit or a scheme fit for both Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne to succeed at Clemson. And I think that his rushing attempts will go up, and that just means that his numbers will spike even more in the yardage and touchdown area. So that is my number 7 player. At number 6, I went with the defensive end from Iowa, AJ Epenesa, a phenomenal player. He didn't even start last year, or for a lot of the games last year, which is just insane to think about. I know he's not a household name right now, but surely by the end of this year, he will be. He had 10.5 sacks in 2018, alongside 16.5 tackles for loss. This kid is just a beast, and I think Iowa's defense is really just going to ride behind him this year. Another guy like Chase Young, who I could definitely see going first round of the 2020 NFL draft, and I think that he's just going to have so much success at Iowa this year and just really play lights out. At the number 5 spot, I chose the wide receiver Rondale Moore. I know I listed him as a wide receiver slash running back. That's because at Purdue they gave him a ton of opportunities at the running back position, and he shined there just as much as he shined at wide receiver. He had 14 total touchdowns last year, 12 receiving, 2 rushing. He had uh, an insane amount of yards per game, which was sitting at 170. And he also had 114 receptions, which was first in college football. So he's obviously the main target at Purdue, and that was only his freshman season. So he's not even draft eligible in 2020, which means we'll see at least 2 more years of this kid who's an absolute stud. So big things coming from Rondale Moore in the future. At the number 4 spot, I chose the best running back in college football, Jonathan Taylor. He has been consistently good throughout his college career. He had an insane season, and on top of all of that, last year his sophomore season was even better. He put up 2,194 yards, which was first in college football, along with 16 touchdowns. And he's just such a phenomenal, explosive player, and not to mention he plays versus very tough defenses in the Big Ten, whether it's Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. All of those defenses are phenomenally, and he has to go up against them every year. And he really shines versus almost every team that he plays. So I think Jonathan Taylor will be in Heisman contention this year. I think he'll be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft next year, and just such a great player. At number 3, I chose the best defensive player in college football. Grant Delpit definitely could be a number 1 overall pick in 2020. He put up 74 tackles from the free safety position, and on top of those 74 tackles, he had 9.5 tackles for loss, again, from the free safety position, which is insane. And if that wasn't enough for you just for run stopping, he also was a great pass rusher for LSU. Again, he plays safety. He had 5 sacks last year. And now you might be thinking, oh, he's more of a box safety. He plays the run more than the pass. That's not necessarily true. He also has great ball skills and put up 5 interceptions. So 5 sacks, 5 interceptions, 9.5 tackles for loss. That's just an insane stat line. I think he'll just get better. Like I said before I started talking about him, I think he's definitely a number 1 overall pick potential. He's that good. So I think he's like a Jamal Adams type player, just with better coverage skills. So big things coming for Grant Delpit in the future. Number 2, I went with Tua Tagovailoa. I know I botched that. Tua is just such a fun player to watch. I'm not an Alabama fan. I'm actually more of an Alabama hater, but you can't deny that this kid wasn't an amazing player last year. He threw up 3,966 yards, which was 5th in college football, and 43 touchdowns, which was 2nd. And on top of all of that, he only had 6 interceptions, which was towards the bottom of all quarterbacks in college football. And so, I mean, his stats are just absurd. But if you watch him play, his decision making, his accuracy, the timing of his throws, just all are so good. And I mean, I think like Grant Delpit could definitely be first overall in this 2020 NFL draft. So we'll see how this all plays out. But Tua definitely has the potential to be a star in the NFL, and he'll definitely be a star in the 2019 college football season. The number 1 overall player in college football this year is going to be Trevor Lawrence. When you hear these stats, remember he did not start until week 4. He had 3,280 yards and 30 touchdowns. And that was to 4 interceptions, which is insane. His decision making, like Tua's, is absurd. And the thing that gave him the edge over Tua is what I watched in the national championship game last year. I'm sure many of you watched it, Alabama versus Clemson. In the beginning, Lawrence and Tua were battling it out. We thought it was going to be a great game, and then you just saw Lawrence just outstride Tua towards the end of the second quarter into the third quarter. I mean, Lawrence just outplayed Tua so much. Just a phenomenal passer. I think Lawrence could have gone to the NFL out of high school and been a starter in that league. He's just that good. He's a purebred passer. He has like insane arm strength, insane accuracy. I think the only thing he needs to improve on at Clemson this year is his deep ball accuracy. But other than that, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be one of the best players out of college football we've seen in a very long time. All right, guys, that is going to do it for my top 10 players going into the college football 2019 season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. And if you want to see more videos, subscribe. So we'll see you guys next time.